Guys, so we're gonna jump right into the video. So here I have the old wig on the mannequin head, and I'm just separating the frontal hair from the bundles hair. This is a wig that I made myself in January of this year, but the frontal was something I was trying out and it was trash. So we're gonna take that off and put in our So Stush frontal. So you just want to separate the hairs and then use the T-pins to pin the wig down. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do is go through the thread, and you have to try to make sure you're cutting the thread of the frontal. I'm going to take this frontal off. Oh Lord, okay, so I feel like the part that I can see the best, I should really have on my glasses, but okay, is in the middle. The sides get a little confusing because the bundles and the frontal are close together. So I'm gonna start from the middle and have that kind of like guide me. Yeah, so like I said before, this was a HD frontal that I was trialing because I wanted to add it to the site, but baby girl, that frontal was trash. Sis was stiff, okay? She was not letting me live my life. So as you can see, there's no HD frontals on my site, only HD wigs. Yeah, so we're gonna put a brown lace 13x4 frontal onto this wig. When I made this wig, I had it in my mind that I was gonna want to have this wig for a while, and eventually I would have to change the frontal. So when I was putting it together, I didn't have the thread. At least I tried my best not to have the thread from the bundles and the frontal overlapping. So as you can see, I'm just going thread by thread, removing the frontal while the bundles are still staying attached to the cap. So as you remove your frontal, you want to take the T-pin and pin the cap down, because that's where you're going to sew your new frontal. When I made the first wig, when I was cutting off the cap that was underneath the frontal, I didn't cut it like all the way to the bundle. I left that much material that you can see because I knew that I would be replacing the frontal eventually, and I wanted to make sure I would have space to like re-sew another one without it being more difficult than it needs to be. So as you can see here, I'm just taking my time and cutting the thread. When I got closer to the sides, it was harder to do because the frontal and the bundles were closer together and it was harder to figure out, but we got it done. my frontal with my band is off. And you can see it's just like stiff. I don't know. Because even just looking at this, these were both just hung up in my closet. And why does the frontal look like this? And then look at the nice luster of my bundles. No, I couldn't. I couldn't. Oh my gosh, look at how stiff it is. Why is it this stiff? Like, why is it sticking up like this? This is how I would be walking around. I would have to like pat my hair down every 5 seconds. And look at how pretty these bundles are. Like, come on. You can't compete where you can't compare. So now it's time to put on the new frontal. This is the frontal that we plucked and bleached in the last 2 videos. So right now I'm just trying to put the frontal on in the right position. You really want to try to get it even on both sides. Depending on how off center it is, you can fix it and just cut the longer side. But if it's like really, really crooked, you may not have enough frontal on one side and you're going to have to redo it. So I'm right here, I'm just pinning it down, and then I'm going to actually braid the hair on the frontal, like down each side, just so I can see the frontal better and get a better look of where the middle is before I start sewing. Much better. And that all looks like some bomb ass fucking hair. A dry ass frontal. That shit pissed me off. Alright, anyway. I was like, I hate it here. Alright. Can we take a look at the hair in these braids? Look how pretty it is. A beige be mixed with Indian or whatever. I love the hair from my company. I'm so proud of it. Like, it's all I've been wearing for the past year, maybe a little more than a year. And I love it so much. So I'm just, still trying to get it centered, and then I'm going to pin it down. I'm just gonna go through that band in the back of the frontal, go through the cap. And that's why it's good to braid it, to kind of keep everything as neat as possible. I'm just gonna do that again in the same place. Now I'm gonna, very small spaces, gonna go through. I'm gonna go through both and then come up in the middle of both pieces of thread. That's how I've been sewing my wigs and stuff, and they've been super secure. There are many different ways to tie it, so if you know a different way, you prefer a different way, or this doesn't work for you, then it's not the only way. All's not lost. And I'm just pulling it tight. And I just start from the middle so that as I go down, I can line the frontal down. Because if you start from the bottom and go up, if you didn't initially pull it right, you might end up with like the frontal bunched up at some point. So I started from here so I can always pull the frontal down on the sides as far as it can go. Try to sew around any hair. Try not to get the hair tangled into the thread. And also be mindful of the thread from your bundles, because if you end up replacing this frontal again because you want to reuse the wig, you don't want to fall into the trouble of having to cut the thread off your bundles too, because you kind of sewed everything together. That's why I'm keeping a little space, because that's gonna get covered with hair. That's not gonna be a big deal. The cap is black, like that's okay. I just want to make sure, because these bundles are lasting, honey. The other wig I had, I've been wearing it, those bundles, since September, and it's still so gorgeous. And these bundles I've had since I think January. So yeah, the bundles are gonna be lasting. So I want to be able to continue to switch out the frontals. So you just want to make sure you're not sewing them together. You can sew them as close as you're comfortable with them, but just don't sew them together. Unless you don't mind having to re-sew the top track. Then if you don't mind having to sew the top track over every single time, then it doesn't matter, you can sew them together. I want the easiest, quickest way, so I'm not gonna do that. Yes, dolls. So we have our new frontal on our wig. You see, sis is secure, okay? She's not coming off. So I'm going to turn around and show it to you. So the next step we're going to do is put our band on. If you want a band on it, I'm going to make a video on band placement. And then we're going to install her. And step 1 next, period. So at this point, you have your new wig put together, and you can run your fingers like that just to see how the plucking looks. And if you want it thinner, you can pluck it more. If not, stay tuned for the next video, band placement and installment. Bye.